Hello and welcome back to The Give and Go. I'm your co-host Reynoso here with my boy
Soltero. What's up, guys?
It is a special day. There was a monumentous ceremony over in Paris today where we got to see Lionel Messi lift up his 8th Ballon d'Or, brother. Eight. We reminisced on this. Actually, we in a way almost predicted this right after the World Cup ended on December 18th, 2022. We had a live stream right here in this room, and we said, with this World Cup victory, with Messi winning the MVP of the tournament, is he destined for that 8th Ballon d'Or? And you looked at me from across this table and you said, yes. And not only that, you added, no doubt, it's done. It is done. Erling Haaland tried. He tried his absolute best, winning a treble in the goddamn process. But at the end of the day, man, the GOAT of the goddamn sport ends up lifting his 8th Ballon d'Or.
He's the GOAT. There really is nothing else to say here, man. If you're surprised that Messi won today, his 8th Ballon d'Or, then I don't know what to tell you. You're not really looking at the landscape of football. You don't really understand how good Lionel Messi is, even at this old age. But once he lifted that trophy with Argentina almost a year ago, and all the accolades that he's accrued, not even just this past season, but like, for example, with Inter Miami winning the Leagues Cup, but his legacy, it was always going to end this way, with him winning a World Cup, and then in that same year, of course, getting the Ballon d'Or. It just makes sense. I really don't see how you could have given a real good shout out for Erling Haaland or any other player, even though they've had an immaculate season and there have been some incredible players come through over the last 12 months. But to win a World Cup, we all know it. Pundits, fans, anybody who loves the sport knows that the World Cup is the most prestigious award that you can get as a professional footballer. And if you are the MVP of that tournament, you actually lift the trophy yourself, and you are also the GOAT, then you're going to lift your 8th Ballon d'Or, brother. And my God, hats off to Lionel Messi, the greatest player that this sport has ever seen.
Yes, Lionel Messi wins the award. In second place is Erling Haaland. Third was Kylian Mbappe. And then fourth was Kevin De Bruyne. My question to follow up your whole statement, everything you just said regarding Messi and this trophy is, do you think it's his last one? Is this where it ends finally? Is this where the run ends? Or is there a way here for him to gain a 9th Ballon d'Or?
God, I feel like no. So obviously, right now, he's actually an MLS player winning this, which is insane. It looks beautiful on that Wikipedia page. You see a nice, beautiful American flag next to the Ballon d'Or winner. But that's the thing, and I think rightly so, the people who end up picking the Ballon d'Or winner obviously are going to give more credit and more weight to players that play in Europe.
100%.
And since Messi all last season was with PSG, and then of course also winning the World Cup, I think that's why it was very easy to give Messi this trophy this time around. Him being in the MLS, I just think it's going to make it very, very difficult for him to win it. Even if he wins the Copa America, for example, with Argentina later this summer, I think it would just add to the legacy, add to the idea that Messi's still killing it outside of Europe. But I'd say the only way he could win another Ballon d'Or would be if he could win another World Cup.
Yeah.
But that's just going to be, it's so far in the future, man. It's just, I don't even know if you can say that.
Yeah.
So realistically, I do think this is his last one.
Yeah, I think so too. But on the bright side, I think something that I really took away from this whole ceremony and kind of just seeing the passing of the guard here with what many do consider to be Messi's last Ballon d'Or is that I've been keeping an eye on two players, Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland. And we've been keeping an eye on them for a while now, 5-6 years that they've risen to prominence and really stepped up on the biggest stages. And what I love so much about both of these players is that early on, they were tagged with that similar like debate that Messi and Ronaldo have had for so many years. People were saying they're this upcoming generation's version of that. Erling Haaland versus Kylian Mbappe. And by the grace of God, we've been able to see them actually go head-to-head for a good amount of years now consistently. Yeah. Injuries haven't come in the way. Their accomplishments haven't fallen short. They've both really done amazing things in their own respective leagues and within themselves, even at the international level. Mbappe having a hat-trick at the World Cup and Erling Haaland breaking insane goal-scoring records for Norway despite them not being able to qualify for major tournaments. They've done really, really well, and I'm very appreciative of that because that could have easily died out early on. But instead, what we're seeing now is these two massive players lined up right behind Lionel Messi in 2023, with Mbappe finishing in second place and Erling Haaland finishing in third. I think this is actually really notable because looking back at Mbappe's finishes in the Ballon d'Or rankings, he actually hasn't finished that high for how well he's played in these past few years. These are his finishes since 2017. He finished in 7th, then 4th, then 6th, then 9th, and then 6th again. Finally, he breaks into the top 3 and he finishes in 3rd place. And then on the other side for Erling Haaland, he's actually only ever received 3 Ballon d'Or nominations. Starting in 2021, he was in 11th, then he went up to 10th place the following year, and now he's risen up to 2nd place. Kind of setting the tone, kind of setting the stage for what we're going to see now in the future. With Messi probably not winning it the next following year, Erling Haaland and Kylian Mbappe are setting the stage for what's going to be another great rivalry.
You know what's really interesting is I looked at these same numbers and I came to a very similar conclusion as you, but then I started to have a little bit of doubt as to what really is going to be that saga of Mbappe versus Erling Haaland. And you know, I don't know if it's so certain that it's just going to be them two for the next even like 3 years. Short term, I'm even thinking. And the reason why I say that is because when both Messi and Cristiano hit the scene, it was very, very clear that they were the 2 best players already on the planet by the time they were like 21 years of age, right? And so from then on out, we saw 10 years of pure dominance between them two. And, you know, just even looking at the numbers, the next highest Ballon d'Or winner is 3, right? 3 Ballon d'Ors. Messi has nearly tripled that. Nearly tripled it.
Yeah.
That's the type of consistency that I think comes once every 1,000 years. Like, I'm going to get that exaggerative here. And so I think we've gotten kind of used to the idea that, you know, there's only going to be one guy or, you know, 2 guys, like, for example, the Messi-Ronaldo saga that we saw. And I think, I mean, I was also with it that I was like, okay, Mbappe and Haaland are the next 2. They're going to be battling it after it. But looking at kind of the inconsistencies that we see at club level for both Mbappe and Haaland, and by inconsistent, I mean inconsistent in comparison to Lionel Messi, I don't know. I mean, we might see Jude Bellingham win it next year.
Absolutely. He's got to be the front runner right now.
He's got to be the front runner. Yeah. And Mbappe and Haaland might not win it with no Messi and no Ronaldo to be seen. And I think that's where modern football is actually heading, is honestly towards more a bit of parity between the top players. Rather than it just being the pinnacle of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, we might see like 5 or 6 players constantly just kind of rotate in and out of that top 3 for the next like 5 years. Now,
that's how it was in the 2000s. I think for like the first 8 years up until Messi and Ronaldo started going back and forth, I think in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, those first 7-8 years, it was a different winner every single year with, I think, only either Ronaldo or R9 or Zidane repeating perhaps, but only one guy was able to get 2 trophies during that time. The rest was, like you said, pure parity. And that could be what comes our way these next 10 years. I agree. I do see that happening.
And yeah, just to finish the note, I do think the next couple of years in football are just going to be really interesting as far as the debate will be who actually is the best player. Because honestly, man, I mean, for the last 10 years, it's been pretty easy to identify who the best player is, and it was Lionel Messi. I remember I had a fan actually come up to me a couple months ago, and, you know, we talked some footy, as I always love to do, and he asked me, he was like, who is the best player right now in all of world football? The thing is, I only had one answer, and I'm like, look, it is Lionel Messi. I mean, he's proven to be unbeatable. He is inevitable, even at this old age. So I can't really pick another player until he's retired. I really can't. But we're about to see Messi retire maybe over the next couple of years. And now that he's outside of Europe, obviously we'll see less and less of him. So now it's going to get so interesting to see the debate of who is actually the best footballer in the world. And I think that starts now with Messi, in my eyes, lifting his last Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting because, dude, it might get really difficult.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, at that point, you could be asking, like, okay, Haaland 30 goals versus Jude Bellingham's 20, but maybe one won the league, one didn't.
Musiala has something to say,
exactly.
right? Pedri's healthy for a whole season. Gavi playing great as well. This new crop that's coming up, there's so many talent-filled names that I think might have something to say about the Erling Haaland, Kylian Mbappe debate, as you were trying to mention earlier. Who do you think then 10 years from now, we fast forward 10 years, the year's 2033. Who's got the most Ballon d'Ors, if any of them have multiple?
Okay. Honestly, my first thought, and I don't know if this is going to be controversial or not, but straight up Jude Bellingham.
Oh, you're going Bells.
Dude, the trajectory that he's on right now, he's making football look way too easy. Way too easy, and he's so young. We saw it before with Cristiano when he moved to Real Madrid and just went off for the next 10 years. Bellingham is on that exact same trajectory. If he can just literally stay consistent in this way, honestly, he can lose a bit of consistency and still score 6 goals every 12 games. Like, that's an insane rate. If he can just keep that up, Bellingham might be the best midfielder in the world for the next, 5-6 years. Easily. And when I look at Mbappe and Haaland, I see them as also incredibly elite. And I think they will win 1 or 2 Ballon d'Ors. But I don't know. I feel like Bellingham just seems a little bit different in my opinion. Although I would say Mbappe maybe could get a couple more Ballon d'Ors if he keeps winning with France.
That's a massive centerpiece in all of this. Bellingham, I think what really helps him is his timing. He has, I think, a 5-year head start on Mbappe. Mbappe's 25 now.
Jeez, yeah,
Bellingham's
that's
20,
insane.
right? And so if Mbappe had the opportunity to compete for the Ballon d'Or in a time where there is no Messi or Ronaldo, starting at 20 years old, maybe he'd have one by now.
That's
but
a good point.
Bellingham is going to have 10 straight years of just having to deal with, Erling Haaland or Kylian Mbappe, who are great players, but not Messi or Ronaldo. For Mbappe, I do think the international factor is always going to help him because he's always going to be part of one of the top 3, probably top 2 international teams in the world consistently. And for Erling Haaland, that could be his crux, bro.
Dude.
Like, that could keep him from winning a ton of awards, because what truly can he achieve with Norway that is comparable? Is just qualifying for a major tournament the same contextually as France winning a World Cup? It might be, but the footballing world might not see it that way, because they'll ask for trophies. They'll ask for silverware out of Erling Haaland, and that mixed with his play style, where he's just very direct, an out-and-out striker in charge of scoring goals, whereas Mbappe will always have that element of being an all-around offensive player. And Bellingham, too, is showing now that he can be way more than just a box-to-box midfielder. He can be a goddamn 9 if needed. I think that might end up playing against Erling Haaland a lot in his future. So I can see him having a couple years where he just goes off 50-plus goals in one calendar year and he gets the award. But I could see other years where it gets really close for Haaland and people just end up going for the international success that one of these players has over him. In my opinion, the future of this award, the future of football, is looking really, really excited. And I'm so hyped to see where it goes. But for now, we get to close out this chapter with Lionel Messi lifting his 8. Just crazy, man. Just crazy.
Insane. If the viewers didn't know, Reynoso and producer Rudd actually were just on vacation, so that's why we haven't had a couple pods in a while. So I actually have a couple questions for you, man. I want to know some of your takes on a lot of the big things that happened over the last 10 days. And honestly, first off, Neymar's ACL. I just want to know your first thoughts. What do you think of it? What do you think going forward about Neymar, his career? What were your first thoughts when you saw that headline?
Yeah, no, perfect question. Literally playing off of what we just talked about. The Ballon d'Or, where he should have been in conversation of winning, where he should have been up there with Ronaldo and Messi had he lived up to his potential. While Messi's lifting his 8th, while Ronaldo's still thriving in Saudi Arabia, Neymar's in a goddamn hospital, bro. And he ain't doing too good. 31 years old. ACL injury takes him out for the season.
Oh, yeah.
Al Hilal gets 2-3 games out of their newly acquired star, and Neymar is in a pickle, in a footballing pickle now, because to come back from an injury this harsh, especially with the way and style that he plays the game at, makes me fearful for if he will be able to have that same explosiveness off the ball, off the dribble that he used to have for the past 10 years. Will it hinder his performance a little bit? And at the same time, will not playing for a whole year once you're past your 30 years of age, will that have an impact on just your overall play? I think the answer to all these questions is yes. I think we're going to see now a version of Neymar that is a shadow of what he once was. I feel so bad for Neymar, man. I feel bad for him. It's just been hindered with such bad luck regarding injuries. But this one to me just devastated me. It devastated me to see a guy like Neymar on the floor screaming for help and, not being able to see out this upcoming year with Al Hilal, who I had selected as my AFC Champions League winner, I'm going to have to revoke that selection now that Neymar's out. And I'm going to have to look over at other teams because Neymar's impact on this team was going to be huge. And overall, the footballing world took a loss with Neymar's injury.
Yeah, dude, honestly, I think I agree with every single thing that you just said. For me, my first thoughts were I'm just really bummed that Al Hilal is not going to be able to see their superstar player that they just signed. He's out for 12 months minimum, and the season just started in Saudi Arabia. The AFC Champions League just started a month ago. There was so much football to be played in Asia, and Neymar could have had a really big impact in his first year there. And now none of that is possible anymore. It's like completely off the charts for Neymar. It's not going to happen. And then on top of that, no Neymar at the Copa America. His last Copa America chance before he was gonna get really up there in age, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. Timeline wise, he's not gonna make it, bro.
No, and
oh man,
it sucks.
That's rough.
It's rough. The expanded version here in the United States, Brazil trying to make amends for last year's World Cup, and it was going to be the perfect opportunity to do so since Brazil have been in decent form and they're still talent-wise, top 3 international teams in the world. And now Neymar is just not going to be a part of that. I think if you're Brazilian, you're not going to be too worried, honestly, because you have so much depth in that position. And honestly, the talent of Brazil right now is only getting higher. So in the grand scope of things, I think Brazil's going to be just fine. But as far as the narrative, as far as that legacy that Neymar was trying to, end his career on, it's all gone. It's just not going to happen now. And as you said, Messi's going to be there. Right?
Yeah,
Messi's gonna be there for Argentina, and Neymar is just not gonna be anywhere near that pitch for Brazil. And it's just such a shame because it's nobody's fault. It's not Neymar's fault. It's just bad luck. It's Neymar's life, unfortunately. It's the cross that he has to bear. He's just completely injury prone. There's nothing that can be done. It just sucks because now low key I'm getting Eden Hazard vibes, bro. As far as dude, as you kind of already alluded to, does Neymar really come back from this? Does he really? Or is he going to try and come back and kind of like Hazard did, play a few games here and there and then ultimately just be like, can't play anymore, guys?
Well, that's what could be really interesting about this narrative. You made a great point. The narrative of Neymar is one of the strongest narratives out there in world football because it's one that everyone fell in love with. A young, true wonder kid at his peak, playing with Santos, playing out of his mind, going head-to-head with Ronaldinho at one point, winning the Puskás Award, I believe, for best goal scored. Crazy flair goal.
Won the Copa Libertadores with Santos
as well. His story was tailor-made for just the average football fan to hop on and support. Then goes to Barcelona and has an incredible trio with Messi and Suarez scoring an incredible amount of goals and assisting like no other. It's that narrative, bro. It's that narrative. And so now I think it is at a crossroads and it's between two paths, two extreme paths. They're miles, countries apart, where one of them is potentially having the same ending to his career as Eden Hazard, where he can't get back to that level and doesn't even come close to it.
Yeah.
There is the other one, though, which is what if he ends up becoming, what if his story ends up becoming one of redemption? Because imagine if Neymar is able to compete at the 2028 Copa America, the 2030 World Cup, and maybe he doesn't have the same impactful role for Brazil that he's always had in the past, but rather he's just a part of a system. He plays an important role that matters for this national team to win trophies, and thus he sees himself actually lift these trophies at an older age, but still in a way that's respectful, where he can still go out with dignity, right?
Yeah.
And then at the 2030 World Cup, maybe it's Vinny Jr. who carries the team. But regardless, Neymar can be a part of it, and he can at least get that satisfaction of lifting the World Cup, lifting a major trophy, and not going out in an Eden Hazard type of way. Those are the two paths I see ultimately set for him to have. It's just terrifying how easily it could be one or the other right now, bro, because with an injury like this, you really don't know what could happen.
I want that redemptive path 100%. I think everybody does. We don't want to see one of the most heavy flair type players in the game to retire at such an early age. But my only problem is I truly think that when Neymar does come back, I think he has to change his play style, man. Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, pretty fully, like 180 degrees. I don't think he can be that penetrator anymore. I don't think he can be the foul drawer anymore, where he relies on his flair to draw foul after foul. It's an incredible tactic. Very few players can do it. Neymar was one of them. Problem is, he just doesn't have the body for it. He really doesn't. And, you know, when he's going full pace and he gets tackled, well, you know, his knees are made of glass, so it's just not going to help. So I honestly think the way that Neymar has to come back from something like this, he's gonna have to change his play style, and more specifically,
like a left back.
No, more specifically, I think he needs to just be a tempo setter in the midfield, a guy who's very good on the ball, but is not going to give you a lot of width. He's not going to give you a lot of box to box action, but he's going to have incredible skill on the ball, and I think he's just going to have to focus more on the pass rather on the dribble. I truly do think that's where Neymar's career can end well, going into his 30s after a pretty bad injury here.
Who do you think, who's the most comparable player to that style you're looking for right now?
Basically how Messi plays minus Messi's dribbles right now.
Yeah, because less penetration.
Way less penetration, and just survey yourself in the middle of the pitch and spread balls out wide to players who can run, players who can dribble penetrate. Because
like Ruben Neves.
Yeah, there you go.
I can see that.
Like Ruben Neves, but obviously Neymar's going to be a little bit more offensive. As in, if I'm playing Neymar in that position, I'm like, dude, don't worry about the defensive end. I'll play two defensive midfielders beside you. Your job is when you get the ball, look for that penetrative pass, just not the dribble, and try and lower your flair so you don't get hit. So it'll definitely be a very muted version of himself. And that's the thing, is that, like, can he do that? Or does he only see himself as, you know, Neymar? That's where it's going to get really interesting.
I think for me, my counter to that would be, I think he needs to play less games. I think that's what needs to change more beyond his play style. Honestly, both would be best.
Both would be best.
We're seeing LeBron right now in the NBA. The Lakers are reducing him to, what, like 28 minutes max per game now because he's damn near 40 years old.
Yeah.
Some equivalent of that has to happen for him in the footballing sense. Play him one half a game or just play him half as many games. Yeah. Like literally at the club level, he cannot have that same demand that he's been having for the past 10 years because we've already seen it start to take a toll back when he was at PSG. And that whole take I had about PSG being Mbappe's team from the moment he arrived was because Neymar was out for half of the season, damn near every single year. So for me, it's the games played. It's that responsibility of showing up, lacing up your boots, and having to go at it every single time, mixed in with his play style that just results in him being injured time in, time out. Reduce the games, reduce the minutes, reduce the play style, and then maybe you get a successful Neymar that is able to see out his career in a healthy and respectable way.
And what's crazy is that, you know, a Brazilian player kind of ended his career in what I'm trying to describe as far as play style is concerned, and that's Ronaldinho. When he moved to Querétaro and then eventually Flamengo, dude, he didn't run. He didn't run at all. But his flair and his ability on the ball was so high that he could get past players not off the dribble, but just with his cheekiness, with his passing ability. And he was still so effective because he was Ronaldinho. He had, you know, he knew the game far better than anyone else out on the pitch. Neymar can do that. He just has to reduce his dribble penetration, reduce his flair that gets him fouled. And I think that's going to be the key for Neymar going forward. But yeah, also you definitely have to reduce his minutes in some form or fashion. I actually agree with that.
You mentioned it earlier. I was gone for about a whole week, right? Which is a damn near lifetime in the footballing world. Yeah. And so I've come back from my trip. I've returned. And let me do this. What would you consider is the biggest story in club football right now? You know, I missed a whole week, let's say. Well, what's the biggest story that you got to catch Uncle Ed, Uncle Reynoso on right now?
The one thing that really caught my eye when it happened, and it hurts a very specific club, and it's the suspension of Sandro Tonali.
Oh, a little bit of a gambling angle here.
He's a gambler, bro. So it turns out Tonali's a gambler. Like, what the hell, man?
Tonali's a gambler, bro.
Dude, he's out for, what, 10 months as a ban?
He's addicted, too. That's what's crazy about the situation.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if he's going behind the rules, he's got to be addicted. There's no way he'd be like, oh, let me gamble for fun here. You know, there's no way.
A fucking Zanolio, too, got thrown into the same bus. Yeah. And he made a statement where he was like, just to be clear, guys, I didn't gamble on any specific games in which I played in. I was just doing like blackjack and shit. I was playing card games. So trying to still salvage his reputation in a classic gambler-like way, man. Exactly. It's just crazy to me that both Tonali, Zaniolo, and maybe some other players.
It's another one.
Yeah.
Fagioli, I think, of Juventus.
Interesting.
Yeah,
The Italians have that
that
itch.
in a minute. I mean, there's all that history of match fixing, and it's usually Italian. I don't want to point any fingers here, but it's just really interesting because, like, goddamn, if you're a Newcastle fan, you're getting screwed here, completely screwed. And not only that, the injury list of Newcastle is getting bigger and bigger. There's not a lot of depth there, and you just lose one of your best signings of the summer, and not only that, one of the more important pieces of your midfield, and he's gone for the rest of the season, and low-key even going into next season. And then on top of that, no Euros for Tonali. Pretty big punishment here, but I mean, that's what the rules state. Like, you can't break this. You can't bet on games that you play in. You can't bet on games in general if you're a professional footballer. Tonali knew this, and, you know, he still tried to make it work, right? And so I think the punishment is fair. I don't think there's any controversy here whatsoever. Yeah. It's just a matter of fact, and so Tonali's really screwing over Newcastle. Dude, it really is.
It's just like he got caught.
Yeah,
I don't like. How does that even happen, right? Like,
I know.
Within what context did
someone probably
him,
like, you know, got money and were like, all right, Tonali gambles. By the way, here's the proof.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though is that apparently Tonali's like saving grace here, and I say that with quotations, is that apparently he only bet on games in which he did not play in, or if he did play in them, he bet on his team winning. Right, so it's interesting, right? At least he didn't bet on his opponent, and he didn't score some weird own goals. That would be really bad. Nuts. That'd be like a couple-year ban, maybe even lifetime ban. Yeah. But that's why I say it's like the saving grace. But dude, imagine Tonali like winning with Milan, and he bet on the game,
bro.
He must have had a crazy.
He must have had a great year last year, bro. Because the odds on Milan going that deep in the Champions League were not as high, bro.
Oh man, I bet he made a lot of money. Everyone's like in the locker room like really happy, but Tonali's like really up. Like, shit, Tonali, man. I mean, we won for sure, but what's up with him?
Yeah, man. He feels the weight of the win way more than everybody else. I actually get scared. I get really scared at the idea of what does a sober Tonali look like on the pitch, bro? Oh. Because such a notable characteristic about how he plays is that destroyer, that energy, that mentality. He had games where he was possessed, bro. But now it's clear that he was possessed by the goddamn devil, dude. What happens when he has to rely on his own mind, on his own motivations to go out and compete at a high level, especially for Newcastle? Will he be the same player? I hope so, but I'm seeing a weird correlation between players with the word tone in it, bro, with Ivan Toney and Tonali getting suspended for gambling.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see them come back, but it's just stupid, man. I'm sorry. It's just stupid.
Gambling, yeah.
It's just like, come on.
Because you already make so much money.
Like, why? Like, just why? I understand. Maybe Tonali has some other mental issues that he needs to work through, and gambling was just an addiction that helped cover that up. I understand that. But it just sucks because, you know, he's letting down a lot of people here. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm really, really pissed about, you know. And I hope he gets better. I hope he can solve this addiction. But it just sucks because, you know, a lot of people get bummed or hurt by this.
Yeah, it's gotta be one of the most frustrating ways to lose a play. Like, I'd rather it be an ACL.
Yeah, come on, man. Something natural, not like a band like this. Like, God, it's so annoying, but completely fair.
So far, it might end up this season might end up being just another typical season in the footballing world in terms of results, right? The teams that get relegated were expected to get relegated. The teams that won in their respective leagues were the ones that were expected to win. But as of right now, man, there are some really interesting, call them happenings in European football right now. And even you could even say Liga MX as well.
You could.
Tottenham leading Premier League, right? That's very notable because they were not projected to do that. But more specifically, Girona remains in the top three. After we brought them up weeks ago, I thought by this point they at least drop a little bit. They're still up there. But then you have really notable teams like Ajax facing relegation, Lyon facing relegation in France. If you want to throw it in, Basel is facing relegation right now, despite them going deep in the Europa League, I believe, or Europa Conference League like last year. Interesting happenings. Do you feel like this always happens, or is this not notable to you, man? Because I'm sensing some weird energy in the air right now. Like I said, the season might still end up being predictable. But as of right now, I mean, Leverkusen's in first in the Bundesliga as well. Yeah. It's interesting what we're seeing right now in European football.
It is, and I don't want to downplay that, but over the last 12 years that I've watched football, no matter how crazy a league standing gets, things tend to gravitate towards equilibrium come the end of the season. So no matter how crazy the first 20 games can get, and by crazy I mean Girona remaining in the top 3 of La Liga, it always seems to average out come that 38th game. And I have yet, the only example I have that has not been equilibrium has been Leicester City actually winning it.
Has to be.
It's the only one. I mean, I've seen Valencia, I've seen Espanyol after 11 games. Right now, we just finished 10 in Spain, right? After 11 games, be in the top 2, right? And so I'm going to use that old cliche. It's just too early to tell. Yeah. It really is. Sevilla last year were about to get relegated, but they found a way to save themselves, right? So that idea of equilibrium, I do think stands true more so in football, but it's because consistency is really, really difficult to achieve in football. So when you're inconsistent for so long, unless there's like really, really good reason, if you have the talent, you will bring yourself back up just a little bit. For me, the only thing that's going to get you relegated is if you simply just don't have the talent in your squad. So whether Ajax end up getting relegated or not, I don't think they will. But I'm not saying they're going to go all the way back up to first, right? I'm not talking about that type of bounce back. But what I am saying is that the crazy things in football always tends to average out to what they should be.
Okay, let's with that idea in mind, let's have a fun game here. Let's call this game how serious is it and when will it be serious? Okay. Yeah. So all you have to do is give me the number of games that need to be played for you to take this situation seriously.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
And then I'm going to include all these teams that we just talked about. Let's start off with Tottenham. At what point in the season will they become genuine contenders? And I mean genuine contenders to actually lift the Premier League trophy.
For me, it's going to be the halfway point. So after the 18th game.
Okay, we'll check in on that one. With Girona as an actual La Liga contender, how many games for that one? 37.
I was gonna say like probably 30, dude. Like it's gonna be 30 games for me to see Girona and be like, oh, they actually could win it.
Okay. Leverkusen winning the Bundesliga.
How far are Bayern behind them?
I think it's 1 or 2 points.
Okay, then yeah. For Leverkusen, there's only 34 in the Bundesliga, so I'm going to go 26. It's going to take them 26 games for me to really consider them.
Got to go 22 for me personally. Ajax getting relegated.
Probably 30. 4 games left in the season.
Okay. And lastly, Lyon. They're in dead last, I think, right now. I don't think they've won a single game in Ligue 1.
Only problem with this is I have not seen French football this season, so I really can't tell you.
Yeah.
But just I'm gonna go based off of pure culture right now, pure history.
Culture and history here.
Just pure legacy right now. Also, I'll probably say like 30 games.
Okay.
It'll take 30 games, unless by like the 22nd, it's like a 10-point gap between them and safety. But again, I haven't seen them play, so I have no idea how bad they actually are.
And just to finish it off, Atleti winning La Liga?
Yeah. For me, the halfway point, 19. Or 18th game going into the 19th.
Right. I'll check back. If one of these remains true up until those timelines that you gave me, I will bring it up on the podcast, and we will actually be able to discuss it in depth. Until then,
that'd be fun.
It's fuck these topics then.
I just can't, man. It's just not in my DNA to project that far out when there's football playing tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Every day, bro. We got other things to worry about right now.
So building off of that little Tottenham prediction, top of the Premier League table. I caught their game against Crystal Palace this last weekend, and I've caught obviously a couple of other games this season. And there's been so many revelations, right? Ange Postecoglou really guiding this team to be a proper football club. He seems to have a really good system in place. The absence of Harry Kane and the inclusion of James Maddison, Heung-min Son becoming the permanent captain and leading the line for Tottenham. There's been so many, but the one that I've been wanting to talk about, and I don't even know if I'm late to the party. I don't know who else is agreeing with me here, or if it will be a come in agreement later. But dude, Vicario, I think, has been an absolute revelation for Tottenham this season.
What stood out from him that Lloris didn't do in the past?
Well, yeah. So here's my whole analysis on what Vicario does for Tottenham this season and right now. He brings an elite level of calmness to that 18-yard box. What's crazy is that in my eyes, it is the same elite calmness that Hugo Lloris had. The difference is that Vicario is a true modern goalkeeper.
He's taller. Straight up. I remember that being
up.
Lloris's weakness was he was just kind of short for a keeper.
Yeah. And by modern, more specifically, I mean Vicario with a ball at his feet, so comfortable. But he can kind of do several different things for Tottenham because when he's on the ball, he's incredibly confident. He can spread the pitch, really widen it out, and his passes are incredibly accurate. But then beyond that, he almost plays like a second deep-lying midfielder when he goes to the top of his box, gets possession, and he can actually create a play from the edge of his own box because he has such pinpoint precision for a goalkeeper that he can find players in really deep space, and then from there they can, find Heung-min Son or find James Maddison on the run.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's
huge for the system.
He's able to start a play.
Yeah.
It is modern football, and my idea here is that I truly do think over the next couple of years that if Vicario keeps this up, he will be definitively a top 2 goalkeeper in the Prem.
Ooh, yeah. I like that.
And what's crazy?
Yeah.
I haven't even talked about what he's actually supposed to be doing, his goalkeeping, bro.
Yeah.
And that's where he really comes in clutch because he's an excellent shot stopper. Within that 6-yard box, dude, he doesn't make any second guesses. He's so aggressive. He's so confident when he comes out and gets the ball. Dude, he doesn't make any mistakes. When he gets beat, it's just because it was a really, really good shot or it was like some crazy deflection. Right now, I don't really see any mistakes or any holes in Vicario's game. And I think he's only going to get better. And if he stays on this trajectory, I truly do see him as, reaching the same height that Ederson and Alisson have done for the last 5 years.
Well, then this is where it gets fun. If he does reach those heights, is he still the backup to Donnarumma in the national team?
Oh, dude, I wonder.
What's it going to take to top a player like that?
Honestly, all I think that it's going to take is going to be Tottenham's record this season. Truly, if Tottenham can stay top 2, they don't even have to win it. If they can stay top 2 for the rest of the season, then I think honestly, I think Vicario would immediately put himself in the conversation as being Italy's number 1, 100%. And the only reason why I say that is because Donnarumma, for as good as he has been and for as young as he was when he first started out, I do just think, guiding a team to top 2 in the Premier League, and especially the way they're doing it, I do think says a little bit more than where Donnarumma is right now.
I do, yeah. I think Vicario is easily better with the ball at his feet than Donnarumma.
Oh yeah, easily, yeah.
But Donnarumma, I see almost like the same thing as Courtois. Such a good, just direct, straight shot stopper.
Yeah.
Getting the ball past him is damn near impossible because of his size and his frame. But if Vicario can match that same elite level of shot stopping, plus add on the ball handles that he has, dude, then yeah, I could see. I don't know if I could see a reality where it happens, but I can see the debate getting stirred up to who should be Italy's number 1. But then to kind of just go beyond your point, which is Ange Postecoglou, and how, in my opinion, he's been the most efficient manager of this past transfer window in terms of the signings he's made and the success that those signings have had this season so far. Vicario being one of them for, I think, 16 million euros, which when you compare to guys like Onana, 50 plus million, the value he just got with that single signing is incredible. Then the fullback that he signed, I'm blanking at his name right now, the Italian as well.
Oh, Udogie.
Udogie
from, I believe Udinese or Atalanta, one of the
Udinese.
two. Yeah.
I think he was Udinese. Has been really, really good and clinical for this team so far.
Dude, he's been great. He's been great.
Great. James Maddison, we already know everything he's done. Elite player. And then I would even consider a guy like Bissouma like a Postecoglou signing because he didn't play at all last year.
Yeah.
And he earned his confidence during the offseason to then get the starting nod and damn near every single game as well. Pedro Porro has been playing much better alongside Postecoglou than he did with Conte at any point last year as well.
Right alongside Guti Romero, Van de Ven.
Oh, you're right.
Dude, he's been ridiculously good for Tottenham. Ridiculously good. And I think that's why they have like the best defense in the league. Romero, Van de Ven, and then Vicario. Like, my God, like what good signings from Postecoglou, as you're saying.
Yeah, and so, beyond the coaching success that we're seeing, I was curious because I asked this on the community page for the Give and Go the other day. With the success we're seeing from Tottenham so far, everything they've been able to do on a game-to-game basis, the way they're playing, their style, the confidence they're having right now, what player would you attribute the most in terms of their role being the most important towards the team's success? Is what James Maddison is doing, is that the key for why Tottenham is playing so well? Is it Heung-min Son, who suddenly has found himself as a captain and a leader for this team offensively? Or is it Vicario? Or is it Van de Ven? Which player, if you can single one out, is the one that deserves the most praise for what they've been able to do with Tottenham?
I really do. I don't know if I can pick out one, because I think that's just almost impossible unless like they're scoring like 13 goals, 13 games, like Jude Bellingham, right, for example.
Yeah.
I honestly want to say it's the conglomerate of that back line of Van de Ven, Romero, and Vicario. I think they've given an incredible amount of confidence defensively for Tottenham that now the midfielders are able to actually track back and know that their defense is also going to be completely locked down. Like, there's no worry anymore. Like, if the ball is lost, Tottenham's more likely than not going to be able to have that coverage to get it back. And then going forward, I think there's just license to be more free. For example, when you have players like Maddison and Son. But I truly do think the most important thing that Tottenham have done have gotten an elite goalkeeper in Vicario and then a really good center back alongside an already elite center back in Romero. Yeah. I think that actually has been the biggest key to Tottenham's success. Because honestly, there are games where Maddison kind of goes in and out of it. Like, there are times when a team will double team him and he's pretty much ineffective. But he's so good that he can always get at least 1 or 2 good plays. Heung-min Son has been, inconsistent over the last year, but this season he's been fantastic. I'll be curious to see if he can keep that up. So that's why I'm a little bit averse to picking an offensive player for being the key to Tottenham's success this year. So that's why I'm going more defensively. I think Tottenham have really gotten it right.
Dude, I really do like how this team is looking so far, and they're one of the most fun teams to watch right now in all of Europe with the story behind them and with the players they have at hand. It makes me happy to see a Tottenham team be this competitive. I need to see it. I need to see it continue. And I need to see consistency.
18 games.
18 games, like we said, is what's going to take for us to really hop on this train to commit. But, bro, if that train is set to depart, then we could be on for a special, special ride.
For real, though. Holy shit.
MLS Playoffs.
MLS Playoffs. I have a whole rant here. Can I just go into it right now?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. I've already mentioned it before, but the MLS season doesn't matter, right? And let me double down on that, give you a number here. Statistically, it doesn't matter because 62% of the league gets into the playoffs.
Damn.
That means even if you're just bang average, you're in the playoffs.
A league with how many teams, remind me?
29.
29. Dude.
29
if it was like 10 teams, then at least 6 out of 10 is different.
It's so different.
29.
Like come on, man. So I'm talking objectively, statistically, the league does not matter. You can be subpar and qualify for the playoffs, numbers-wise. That's pathetic. That is stupid. It makes absolutely zero sense. I'm sorry. And look, the MLS does everything else right. They do everything else right. Just this playoff thing just gets, and the way the regular season works, it just doesn't really make any sense.
Well, bro, that's an American trait though, because in every single sport outside of the NFL,
right,
the same fans of that respective sport say the same thing. NBA,
right,
does the regular season actually matter? MLB, it's 150-something games.
Right.
And then hockey is the same as NBA, 82 games as well. And we've heard the same arguments in the past. Now you're throwing in MLS into the conversation. To me, it's just that's kind of the way of the USA.
It's just frustrating because you gave that example. The NFL does it differently. And what's crazy, American football is closer to football, in my opinion, than football is closer to basketball or hockey or baseball.
In what sense?
In the sense of how it's played, 1 game a week, essentially.
You're talking essence.
Essence, yeah. It's 1 game a week, how the leagues are structured. You don't try and maximize the amount of games. You just play the sport, and ultimately, there's a way to pick out a winner, right? Mm-hmm. I think football, soccer, right? I think it's played right in Europe, for example. And honestly, Liga MX does an interesting variation that I'm actually okay with. I don't mind how Liga MX or other Latin American countries do their season and playoff. I think that actually makes way more sense than the way the MLS does it because, as you said, the MLS is doing it as if it's the NBA, as if it's something you can play once every 3 or 4 days, but it's not. It should only be played max twice a week, but they're trying to cram in these amount of games. The Leagues Cup thing, even though it was really cool, that it got in the way. It got absolutely in the way. And then to double down on how bad the format is, have you heard how they're doing the first round?
Best of 3, brother.
Best of 3, but not even considering aggregate. If you win the first game 10-0, the second game starts off with a clean slate.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yeah, I think the only advantage from what I saw that the upper seeds get is just they get 2 home games instead of 1.
Right.
That's your reward.
Yeah.
A 1 seed facing off against an 8 seed is literally the same thing then at the end of the day. Like there isn't much incentive to go off in the regular season because come playoff time, it's still pretty even.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's zero incentive in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's why I'm having this rant right now because it just doesn't make sense. And what's crazy is that when you look at the reports, the players are really confused at this format too. They're just like why are we doing a best of 3 series as if it's the NBA?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Because it's just not done this way. Goals matter more than just like winning a one-off game. Like if you lose 10-0, that should somehow factor into the next game into the series.
And soccer specifically.
And soccer specifically.
Baseball is one that does it similar like that. But that makes sense to me. Because in baseball, home run, you boom, 4 fucking runs, all of a sudden it's 4-0. It's not the same as football where every single goal ends up exposing something from your own team.
Exactly. And basketball the same way in the sense that in basketball you get rep after rep after rep after rep. So it makes sense that you only consider the game, not the points accrued. But for soccer, as you said, if you're getting exposed continually, that has to matter because goals are the only thing in soccer. It's the only thing. And so I don't understand it. It's very, very frustrating. But nonetheless, I'm very excited to see who ends up winning it because at the end of the day, the players still have something to play for. And that's their own pride. That's their own ability to win and lift a trophy. That's why I'm here. That's what I care about. And so, yeah, even though I absolutely hate the format, loving the games, loving what the MLS has to offer and what they've been offering, I do just wish the league was structured a little bit differently.
I wonder now with the recent numbers that have been revealed about attendance, about viewership that we've seen from the MLS, took a major rise this year, and you could attribute that probably to Messi and his late season, his late season inclusion. But the numbers that the MLS is generating now, for the first time in the history, has surpassed one of the top 4 major sports in America, which was the NHL. And so, if you're looking at it from a numbers perspective, the MLS is now a top 4, at the very least top 5 sport and league in the USA. And I think that's huge because I saw Stu Holden very aggravated on Twitter because I don't know who it was. Someone was speaking about the top 4 major sports in America, and he mentioned the NBA, NFL, MLB, and NHL. And then Stu quoted or responded. He was like, nah, man, look at the numbers now. The MLS has now entered the conversation. It's time to start respecting that because I think everyone's been so accustomed to this tradition of these major sports in the USA. There's something truly special happening with the MLS, and my hope is that with what they're seeing now in numbers and in revenue and in viewership, that going into next season, they can make those changes to, better the league and make it more entertaining and make things more meaningful so that at the end of the day, it matters more. It brings in more viewership. It's more entertaining to watch. And it isn't a sport that's purely set up just for money and to generate revenue.
I wish that would happen. But I just don't think it is because the one thing MLS has done right is exactly what you're saying, generate revenue. Like that has been their goal, I think, since day one, and they have done so well at it. And honestly, I'm very thankful for that because it's their ability to make that money that is able to, for example, have a team here in Austin. Without money, nothing can be done in this world. So the MLS as an organization has done so well at doing that. Like it's monumental. To crack into the top 4 of American sports, it's something that no other country looking at us thought could be done. They always thought like, oh, soccer's a non-American sport. There's no way it'll be popular here. Well, I think they were wrong, especially with these numbers that are coming out. They're completely wrong because soccer's growing so much here in the States, and I only see it going more up and up and up. So it's really cool that they're in the top 4. But I just think that the MLS are going to keep doing what they're doing. Honestly, they're probably going to have more games during the season. They already kind of do with the Leagues Cup. And I think they're going to make the playoff structures even crazier. I really do think so. I think they're going to double down on what they're doing and just really experiment with the MLS because at the end of the day, it really is about making money. And the easiest way to do that is just to have more games and just, to really advertise the game itself rather than care about tradition, rather than care about game importance like it matters in Mexico or in Europe. I don't think they really care about that because what they're doing right now is working from a monetary perspective. So I don't think they're going to try and go the opposite direction. Like I said this before, bro. I see the MLS in the next like 20 years, low-key having 40 teams. I'm not even kidding. Like I see them having 40 teams, 2 conferences that don't ever play each other until the final. Like, that's how I see the MLS ending up. I don't think it'll ever become a traditional 20-team type of sport like the way it is played in Europe or in South America.
I think the only reason I hesitate to agree is because they've had to be so non-traditional purposely to become the league they've become so far, which is why I give them credit. But I think once you want to become a top 10 league and maybe even become a top 5 league in the world, I think you're going to have to slightly adapt. You're going to have to slightly adjust. And by then, they'll have enough money. They have so much money to accrue that I don't think the money factor will be the sole focus anymore. I think the MLS is kind of approaching this whole, making a name for yourself in the footballing world as a league. They're approaching it through a lens of like, let's do some really non-traditional shit for the first 20, 30 years of the league. What was that shit? The run-up penalty shootout they had in the 90s?
Yeah.
Really representing that. But, once we reach that point, that breaking point where we're starting to crack into the top 10, I'm curious to see how they approach it. Do they continue doing what they're so used to and so well known for, which is this entire format and structure that they have? Or do they slightly start to adjust and bring in elements of the traditional leagues? I'm not saying go fully, such as, maybe they never truly have relegation systems in place.
Right.
But maybe they change the format of the season to where games do matter a little bit more, to then just slightly alter themselves to become a more respectable and entertaining product that can then counter the top leagues in the world because they offer a bit of both. But overall, I think what's happening in the MLS is incredible, and we have an MLS playoffs now. So at the very least, predict and state who we have winning this tournament so people can have an idea of who we're rooting for, or at least what we think will happen in the 2023 playoffs.
Please, let's go. I'll just start off by saying this.
Go for it.
My sentiments during the League's Cup, if you were around listening then, have not changed as to who I think the best MLS teams are. I don't rate any teams out of the West. I don't. St. Louis City's, for as good as they've been all year long, I don't see them as title contenders whatsoever. And I think they actually had a pretty poor first game against Sporting KC, which they lost 4-1, and I think that's just more sentiment towards that. St. Louis City, they've been good, but they're not going to win the trophy. For me, the title contenders are Philadelphia Union, Nashville, and FC Cincinnati, all from the East, and those are the only teams I realistically see winning it. I don't see any other team doing it.
Actually, I have a little bit of fun here. There's a specific state in the USA that I think is on a bit of a prominent rise, birthing 2 incredible NBA players in both Steph Curry and LeBron James. Ohio, baby. Ohio. It's got something to it this year, bro. They've got a little ring to it. The Paul brothers are doing really well for themselves right now. They're from Ohio as well. I think that the winner of the MLS will come out of Ohio. So that means either FC Cincinnati or Columbus Crew, dude, who I've been keeping a keen eye on this season and loving what I'm seeing in terms of results, in terms of just the victories they're getting, and this idea of Ohio being able to produce really strong teams and win themselves a trophy. I'm all aboard, bro. I'm all aboard. So I personally want to see FC Cincinnati or Columbus Crew lift the title, and it's who I think will do it.
Yeah, if I had to pick one team, I do think FC Cincinnati is the best team in the MLS. I have them as my pick as far as going all the way and lifting the MLS trophy. Columbus Crew is so interesting, man, because you're right. There actually is like a really good culture of football in Ohio. Like even before Cincinnati got their MLS club, like Columbus Crew have always been really good. Whether maybe not the most flair type of team, or they didn't ever have the biggest stars, but they always made deep playoff runs, get to finals, and even win a couple of trophies. So Columbus Crew have always been very, very good in the MLS, and as you're saying, they do play pretty good football even now.
One of the OGs of the MLS. I'd love to see them get recognized with a trophy, and then also I kind of like the idea of LA winning the last trophy. New York winning it the year before him. Let's throw in Ohio into that combination, man. One of those cities and states that just isn't put on the same level as those massive major cities. Let's go Ohio, bro. And if they win, maybe we book a trip up to Ohio, bro, and go there for the first time in our lives. So the Manchester Derby was this past weekend with Manchester United going up against Manchester City. City mollywopped Manchester United. It was beautiful to see. Beautiful to see. These people know that I'm already a little bit anti-Manchester United this season based off of our predictions and just how I see the team shaping out to be this year. And Man City will... People already know how we support them on this pod.
Oh, yeah.
Destined to win the Premier League. Destined to win Champions League 2 times in a row. Beyond what happened in this derby, though, for me, I had a bit of a... man, I don't even know what it is. I don't know if it's a revelation. I don't know if it's enlightenment. I don't know if it's fear. But just answer this question for me.
Okay.
Are we in the timeline right now where... Since the inception of football in England, Manchester United has been on an insane rise and has been known as the team in England and has gone on to reach incredible heights under Sir Alex Ferguson, Cristiano Ronaldo, 10 titles in 12 years or some bullshit like that. Just crazy dominance, especially from the 90s and 2000s. It's been like 10 years now, bro, of what many would consider failure for Manchester United. And instead, the team that we've seen accrue the most success in that time has been their neighbors, Manchester City. So the question I have for you is, are we seeing a generational shift in terms of club success happen right now in real time with what Manchester City is doing and how low Manchester United has been dropping in the past decade?
Whoa.
Are we at the start of it, bro? Because 50 years from now...
Right.
Will the consensus be that Manchester is City's town and not United's?
Right. And people born like 20 years from now will have never known a good United.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Exactly. It's crazy because when you think about Atleti being able to overcome Real Madrid in that same way, it feels almost impossible, bro. Yeah. Right? With the culture, with the history. But I do think it's actually happening in world football. And I think it's Manchester United.
Dude, that's insane. That's an insane thought, brother.
Like I said,
I mean,
scary.
I think the inception probably started 10 years ago. That's what we're saying. Like the very beginnings of this, right? 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. But it has been a decade of just United failure based off of the success that they had for the last 20 years prior to that. What's crazy is that when you really look at it, I don't see United winning a trophy for the... I don't even know how long.
Okay.
I don't even know how long.
You've been putting numbers at things today. What, you want to put a number to that? 20? 10?
I mean, dude,
5?
At least right now, I'd say the next 5 years, like, guaranteed they're not going to win the Prem. Like, guaranteed. Obviously, a lot can happen within 5 years, but I think I could comfortably say that Liverpool, Manchester City, even Arsenal, and now even Tottenham have set themselves up to be just better. And as you said, the point here being Manchester City, they have set themselves completely apart from Man United. And what they're doing right now, I just don't see City really falling off the way United has. So if you pose to me this question, I'm definitely going to entertain this.
Entertain it, bro.
I'm going to definitely entertain this because we might be seeing the first 10 years of a complete shift in who the top club is in Manchester. That's insane.
Yeah. The only way I could say it not happen is the departure of Pep Guardiola. I wonder how important his presence truly is to the success of Manchester City.
That's going to be big.
And then also other teams catching up to Man City in terms of ability to finance a team, but then also ability to scout. Because we're seeing teams like Newcastle, right, be able to funnel similar amounts of money into a team as Manchester City has. But will there be a team out there that does a similar thing, but then also combines really good scouting? Say Brighton finally gets a budget. Then what happens then? Do we see a team like Brighton suddenly start to become a thorn in what is Manchester City's success, or Liverpool, Arsenal, whoever it might be? These teams have so much money. They're so big. With the Premier League getting just so much bigger by the year, will the gap that Manchester City has had for the past 10 years become so small and so tight that things suddenly become very even across the board? That's what I think would be the only counter to what Manchester City is doing so far. But if they continue on, bro, because of the fact that so many teams do have that money already and still aren't seeing that same level of success, the system that Manchester City has at the moment, I do agree, bro. I think it's set for something truly, truly insane. And if it does end seeing itself out, bro, it'd be the first time I think ever in a major league where we see, like I said, a generational shift between just the idea and the understanding of what a club is in their own town.
You know what's really interesting, though, is you mentioned Pep Guardiola. I do think he's probably the bigger factor here as far as how long City can keep their insane success streak going. He has the opportunity to be the next Sir Alex Ferguson, essentially. He could be at Manchester City for the next 15 years if he wanted to. And if he says yes to that type of money and to that type of legacy, dude, the Manchester City board is just going to throw Guardiola as much cash as they possibly can. And his scouting team and Guardiola himself are just going to get the best players consistently for the next 15 years. That's what Sir Alex Ferguson was able to do back when he took over in the late 80s for Manchester United and dominated for the next 20 plus years. Guardiola, I think, has that exact same opportunity because he now has the complete trust from Manchester City as a club, like complete. He completely owns this team and he does whatever he wants to with them. When a player leaves, he gets the player that he wants to come in immediately after. When you look at Manchester United, dude, it's the exact opposite. They can't keep a coach and they have the worst scouting system probably in the top 10. Like, it's really, really bad. What's the question here is, what is United's lowest point? What is that point going to be where they finally decide, all right, guys, we're firing our entire scouting team and we're going to completely change how we approach club football? What is that point? Because the lowest it's been for United has low-key been like, what, 7th place?
Yeah, they haven't gotten double-digit finish. I think.
They haven't. So it's like, obviously, it's really painful if you're a United fan because you're used to consistently winning or at least vying for the title. So it is low in that regard. But what is that low point? Where is it where they're like, oh, okay, yeah, now we're actually a really bad club? Because right now, United aren't changing anything. They haven't changed anything, their approach for the last like 8 years. They do the same thing over and over again. They just get a random coach who has some sort of potential and they mix them with players who have a lot of ego, players who won't leave the club, and then when they do get new players, it's a Rasmus Højlund who has not proven himself whatsoever. So it's like, it's the same toxic thing over and over for Manchester United. I want to know, what is that low point going to be where they decide to change that?
Where they decide to change, I don't know. But I will say a massive low is losing 3-0 to your neighbor in the way that they did this past weekend.
For sure.
Where it's just beating after beating after beating. And it's been like that for years now.
That's the thing.
Every now and then they do play up to Manchester City. But for the most part, bro, it's meaningless when they win. Because Manchester City still wins the title that year.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think a result like this past weekend really just shows the difference, the gap between both these clubs. And just keeping up with them to see what ends up happening, bro. Because my kids might end up thinking Man United is a bum team, dude. And that's just crazy.